Good evening and welcome to a brand new edition of WION Dispatch. I'm Aisha Sindhu. It's often said that there are two sides to every story. The Rohingya crisis, it seems, is no different. A narrative has been built over several months, beginning September last year, that the Rohingya Muslim minorities were driven out of Myanmar and the world is obliged to give them refuge. However, what's been lost in the narration is another fact, that terrorists belonging to the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army triggered the face-off with the Myanmarese military. Now, in response, the military has been accused of being disproportionate. Much has been written about and said about the exodus that has followed. However, another fact has emerged now, this one through a report by the international human rights organization Amnesty. It talks about the fate of 53 Hindus of the Maung Dao town of Myanmar. Now, last year, WION had showed you a report of mass graves that were found in the region where Hindus were believed to be buried. Now it is confirmed. Amnesty International has made it clear that terrorists of the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, or ARSA, executed 53 Hindus in the Kha Maung Sek village in northern Maung Dao. Now, what's more, most of these murdered Hindus were young children. The killings took place on August 25th last year, the very same day that the Rohingya terrorists staged deadly attacks on Myanmar's police. The Indian government has demonstrated reluctance to grant refuge to Rohingya refugees. Now, there is the fear that possible hardened terrorists have mixed with Rohingya refugees who are seeking asylum in India. Joining me on the broadcast is Saad Hamadi, WION's bureau chief in Dhaka. Let's talk a bit with Saad about what's going on. Saad, good evening. While we're talking about the Myanmar and Amnesty report, what progress has been made so far in terms of the repatriation of Rohingya refugees?
I've just come out of the Foreign Ministry briefing this afternoon, where the Foreign Minister has enlightened the media about the developments that have taken so far with regards to the Rohingya repatriation. There has been meetings between the Foreign Secretaries of Bangladesh and Myanmar just last week. Bangladesh had previously sent a list of 8,000 Rohingya refugees that they want to be repatriated in the first phase. The Myanmar government initially provided a list of about 600 or so of these refugees that they have been able to verify, but the foreign minister in Bangladesh has just today said that this number has been increased to 2,000. Although there has not been any progress with regards to the repatriation, but the numbers have increased in their verification. Myanmar has also said that they are going to provide a national verification card to the refugees in order to take them back, which would be a systematic process. Although the Rohingya refugees are not accepting of this NVC or the national verification cards, they want their rights to be ensured, their citizenship and justice in order for the repatriation to take place. But Foreign Minister A.H. Mahmood Ali in Bangladesh has said that the numbers have increased and they hope that this repatriation will happen soon.
Right, and Saad, also you have reported yourself in the past about the attacks that were carried out by the ARSA group, a terrorist community, on Hindus as early as September of last year. But access in Myanmar for that investigation has been very limited so far. Isn't that so?
Indeed, the access is very important, in absence of which there have been very little reported from Myanmar. Most of the testimonies that have been achieved, the words of the Rohingya refugees, were acquired by these international organizations, the human rights organizations from Cox's Bazar in the refugee camps in Bangladesh. But with regards to the evidence, there is very little available unless the Myanmar government provides these international organizations with access to Myanmar to do those investigations. The Security Council visit last week have resulted in finding a lot of the details from the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, but they too have said that the fact-finding missions and human rights organizations' investigations are not legal determinations. There needs to be judicial investigation for the authorities to ensure justice for the Rohingya refugees, and for that to happen, really, the Myanmar government has to provide them with access.
Right, and speaking of the government there in Myanmar, it's already facing the heat, Saad, if you will, for the persecution of Rohingyas. Very little has been reported on the armed insurgent group ARSA as well.
I have visited the camps in Cox's Bazar and I've talked to the Hindus who have fled from Myanmar into Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, and they have shared the horrors they have experienced and endured and witnessed before fleeing into Bangladesh. They have mentioned about this Rohingya insurgent group, the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, who have been behind these attacks on the Hindu community in Myanmar. And all these have to be investigated. As Sirana Hassan of Amnesty International pointed out in the report, that crimes have been committed on both ends by the military in Myanmar on the Rohingya communities, and also the insurgent group Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army that has carried out attacks on the Hindu community over there. And both have to be condemned from the human rights violations perspective and investigated in a manner that justice is ensured to both the communities and whoever has suffered persecution in Myanmar.
Right, Saad Hamadi there in Dhaka, thank you for joining us with that perspective.